How much is the cap gains change going to be worth next year?
A little over $3 million in fiscal year 11.
Oh, okay. And 12, what's going to
Yeah,
be?
a little over 10.
And how do you think that's going to jive with the $120 million deficit next year? You think that's going to be problematic?
Well, our goal is to pass a provision that's going to grow jobs and help to create wealth. We're convinced that it really might make a difference. So, the goal of that change was to ensure that venture capital flows into Vermont and that Vermont businesses grow and expand here. And we think it'll work.
So you're hoping to make it up in tax revenues?
Well, you hope that in job creation and tax revenue, it was part of an overall effort this session to do everything we could to encourage job growth and investment in Vermont. And if we succeed, it will certainly create revenue.
I think we know that this is part of a 3-year process, and we knew that all 3 years were going to be difficult. I think that what we're going to see next year is what the structural problem is in our state finances. And for the last 2 years, we've seen an incredible dip in our revenues and incredible pressure on our services. And that has put the overall picture out of whack. I think we're going to see, starting next year, what an economy really, with the economy starting to move forward, I think we're going to have a better sense of what we're looking at for the long run. And at that point in time, we can put in place what is necessary for us to get our finances in order for the future.
Does that mean tackling the education funding formula? Because that seems to be still an area of incredible pressure, not just for the general fund, but also on the property tax as a whole.
I think that we made some changes in the education fund this year that will pay some dividends in the next couple of years. Certainly we're facing pressures in the education system. I would say that the local school boards this past year made a huge difference by bringing in essentially flat budgets, and that relieves some of the pressure off of the general fund. I know that when I talk to people in the education community, they are anticipating having to have a tight budget year again next year, and I think that will relieve some of the pressure. But I think we can't forget, I know that I can't because I've got an 8-year-old who's going into 3rd grade next year and a daughter who's going into kindergarten, that we do have to continue to make investments in our public schools because there's a reason that we have the best schools in the country. It's because we've made the decision that we're going to make investments in those schools, and those create a payoff for us in the long run. We can't forget that.
O'Shea, that reminds me of, I think it's worth looking at what we didn't do. Because you all focused on the areas where we came to agreement with the governor. We had some pretty extensive and wide-ranging discussions about where some of the policy choices that he wanted us to make in order to sign the budget that we didn't accept. And I think it's important to note that the legislature said no to the notion of the Douglas-Dubie team that Vermont should mandate school consolidation from Montpelier. And instead, we passed a bill that's going to give the tools and the financial incentives to local school boards and local communities and local control to make those tough decisions together. And that's worth noting. We passed a bill that gives tax incentives for communities to consolidate without the heavy hand of Montpelier saying, you shall do it our way. And I think that's in keeping with Vermonters' values. And it's one of the areas where the speaker and I said absolutely no to their plan to mandate it from Montpelier.
else?
So you're running again, and you want your speaker again?
Yeah, I am running for my seat, and should I be lucky enough to get reelected, I do plan to run for speaker again. And should I be lucky enough to be reelected for that position, I look forward to serving.
And I won't be running for the state senate, and you won't see me return a third time as Senate President. But it's been a great honor. And we're on to different dreams.
It's going to definitely be hard to find somebody as entertaining and as exciting to work with as Senator Shumlin.
Well, you'll always have a seat in the corner office, but
Entertaining.
Yeah, you promised me that now.
Care to elaborate, entertaining? Any specific,
Thanks, guys, that's good.
soft shoe dance, was it magic trick?
It's just been, it's been very enjoyable.
and vice versa. I gotta say, I've worked with a number of speakers, as you all know, and Shap is the most qualified and capable speaker that Vermont could dream of having. It's been a great 2 years.
It's been fun.
We got a lot done.
Yes.
I was down in Chicago this weekend, and it was a meeting of the Gill Foundation was talking about civil rights for gay LGBT Americans. And it was amazing to walk through there and see, people from across the country who just are so grateful for the fact that Vermont was willing to stand up for civil rights, and that they've watched civil rights erode in other states since we voted. And you hear their stories, and you meet their kids, and you realize that some of the things we did in these 2 years in this little state made a difference far beyond our borders, to give people confidence and to give people hope in a country where they're not accepted and they're excluded.